So, welcome to Jewish Mysticism Lessons in Tanya. Today we begin a brand new course, our final course, our 10th and final course of the entire Tanya, or of our journey of the Tanya. I should mention that with these last three lessons, we will complete. Joyce? We will complete the entire first section of Tanya, what's known as the book, as he translates it. It's called Sefer Shel Beinonim, what he translates as the book for in-betweeners. That's why we're so close to the end of the book. So today's lesson will be chapter 51. And actually, for some reason, I don't know if maybe he got a little lazy with titling the chapters. I highly doubt that's the reason, after having met him. But chapter 51, chapter 52, and chapter 53 all have the same title, which is What is the Shechinah? They denote the separate chapters by putting in I, and I at the end of it. So today we'll start the discussion of what is the Shechinah and what is it doing here, and what do we have anything to do with it? Do we care, right? Everybody with me?
Good question.
Okay, so let's start off by translating the word Shechinah. The word Shechinah, as I think we've translated in the past, means resting. Resting, to rest. Lishkon means when something rests on the ground, or and
Lishkon is also staying.
Right. So resting in English means to stay. Like So to clarify, because English is not your first language, so resting can mean like relaxing, right? And that's a good point that you brought this up. We don't mean resting here as in relaxing or as in
presence.
Exactly, or as in sleeping or re-energizing. That's not what we mean by resting. We mean
Resting your head.
present. Let's use the word presence. Okay, the presence of Hashem. Shechinah means the presence of Hashem, the resting of Hashem here in this world, etc.
Divine presence.
That's a good word.
Where is your soul located? Related to Shechinah?
We're getting there. We didn't get there yet. I will also point out, by the way, just literally as a point of trivia, very often many of you may have asked this question at a Stump the Rabbi, particularly the females in the crowd here today, may have asked, why is it that we always refer to God as a He? And the answer you may or may not have received, I know that I've given this answer once at like one of these panels or whatever, is that it's just a matter of convenience, but that actually Hashem is neither he nor she, right? And that we find in different places that Hashem is referred to as either he or she. Irit will help us understand that the word Shechinah, this is literally just trivia, this has nothing to do with the topic of today's lesson, but the word Shechinah is actually a feminine word. This is one of the places where we see the presence of Hashem, or the light of Hashem, or whatever, or what have you, being referred to in a feminine sense. Just a point of interest. Okay, but on to the topic of today. So the Alter Rebbe. By the way, another interesting thing, which is related to what we're saying today, and which Rabbi Miller opens up with today, is that he did a little bit of research, and actually in the old manuscripts of Tanya, these last three chapters, in most old manuscripts, are actually not part of the Tanya. There is one manuscript where it is, and that's why it's included. But in most of them, it's sort of like as an addendum. It's not there as part of the actual book. It certainly, though, has the same spiritual power, and we know certain things, for instance, that happened factually, historically. The Alter Rebbe, for instance, was in prison for 53 days, and he famously related that to the fact that he composed the Tanya, which was 53 chapters, etc. So, obviously, it was meant to be together, but certainly in some of the older manuscripts, it's more of like an addendum. It's sort of added on as an afterthought, but like an epilogue, let's call it, I guess. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe starts the discussion today based on something we said earlier in chapter 35. Okay, so in chapter 35 we brought what the Alter Rebbe here is calling a Yenuka. That's just a term that the Zohar uses. The Zohar quotes it as if a child said it. This was something that a child said. And what he says is basically, what we discussed there is, we were talking about the halacha in Shulchan Aruch that's brought down that a God-fearing man should not walk more than 4 cubits. And here, when I say man, I mean literally a man. Should not walk more than 4 cubits with his head uncovered. You've heard this before, right? A yarmulke, a kippah. A Jew shouldn't walk more than 4 cubits which is sort of the minimum amount of space, as you walk and you're changing from space to space, without his head being covered. And the Zohar, in an attempt to explain this, says that what is the purpose of a kippah? The purpose of a kippah is because the Shechinah rests immediately above a person's head. And the Zohar brings pesukim, verses, in order to back this up. And therefore, and another quote which the Alter Rebbe related it to over there was Chacham Einav Barosho, that a man has his eyes in his head, which means that a wise Chacham, a wise man, has Einav Barosho. His eyes are constantly thinking about what's on his head. So when we explained it, we spoke about the fact that on a very simple level, wearing a yarmulke, we think about the fact that the presence of Hashem is always above us. Right? Hashem is always above us. He's in stature, he's above us, and he's guiding us, etc. And when we think about that, that will help us to do the right thing constantly in life. Right? If we have God's presence felt in our lives, I think at the time I added my own thought that we should try to make this a happy feeling in our lives, not like a pressure, guilt kind of feeling. Some people, when they hear, "Oh, Hashem is always watching me," so to them it's like a policeman who's watching. Are you going to do the right thing? Are you going to do the wrong thing? No, Hashem is watching us because He's like a father who watches his son and wants his son to do the right thing, right, in a joyous manner. Anyway, so that was the discussion in chapter 35. And the Alter Rebbe opens up with a very simple question. No problem for that conversation and for that dialogue, for that discussion. It worked very well. But what's about the fact that we know that Les Asar Panui Mine, the Alter Rebbe quote from a different part of Zohar, that there is no space in this universe which is not filled with the presence of Hashem. Right? I mean, in Tanya we've gone even further. We've spoken about a non-dualistic model where we realize not only is the presence of Hashem here, but our presence is debatable. Right? So it's Hashem's presence permeates the world. So certainly Hashem's presence is everywhere, right? The Shechinah is everywhere. So what does it mean when we say the Shechinah is above a person's head? Right? Or that the Shechinah is, right? Or that the Shechinah is anywhere for that matter, by the way. Let's have a conversation about the fact that the Shechinah is in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, right? We're told when the Holy Temple was standing, that was the physical manifestation, the building where the Shechinah, where the presence of Hashem rested. Now, obviously, nobody here thinks that these things are a contradiction. Obviously, we're saying Hashem's presence is everywhere, and somehow it's more in the Beis HaMikdash, right? But the Alter Rebbe is asking us these questions in order to get us started. Let's have a conversation about what that means. What does it mean, right? What does it mean that the presence of Hashem is in one place more than another place, right? And wouldn't that, to a certain degree, even be contradictory to what we said, that Hashem is one, right? That Hashem is... There's only one Hashem. He is everything. He is everywhere. We spoke about the fact that Atahu Misha Nivro, Atahu, right? Atahu. I forget the exact word, but I always mix up those words and they slip out of my mind. But how Hashem is before the creation of the world and after the creation of the world, nothing changes. Atahu. No. It's a double phrase. Atahu Misha Nivro. Atahu. No, we say it in the Karbanot. Yeah, the Karbanot before that. So we say Atahu Lif. Maybe it's Atahu Shebara Olam, Atahu Misha Nivro Olam. Maybe it's that he created the world and he's whatever. But basically, the fact that Hashem precedes the creation of the world and obviously succeeds the creation of the world, right? And there's no difference. Atahu, it's exactly the same. You are exactly the same. So how does that tie in together? Okay? Is the goal of today's lesson clear?
Yeah.
All right. So the Alter Rebbe begins by saying, let's use our own soul as an example. Okay? And this was the answer to your question. Where is one's soul located? Right? So the Alter Rebbe turns to us and asks the same question. Where is your soul located? Where is your neshama? Let's take some answers. Irit, where do you think your neshama is located? Your soul.
I think my neshama is in God.
Okay.
Because I don't see how neshama can be in a material body.
Okay, but you're familiar with the concept that the neshama powers the body and energizes the body, right? So where is the neshama?
In the brain.
Okay.
In the heart.
In the heart.
It says in the book of Tanya that ki dam hu benefesh.
Ki adam hu nefesh. Ki nefesh habasar badam hi. Right, but you're referring to the nefesh ha-sichlis, which is the nefesh ha-bahamis. No, we're talking about the godly soul. Right? It's true. The soul that gives power to the body, which for the most part is the animalistic soul, which is why the body has animalistic tendencies. That's in the blood. It's in the whole body. It's in the, right. But we're talking about the godly soul here. Okay, you're right. I should have prefaced that and made sure to set the parameters right. Okay, the godly soul, the neshama that we always talk about, right? So you say the brain, the heart. Anybody else? Anywhere else?
In every fiber of our
In every fiber of our being. These are all good answers. Yes, Rob? She said in every fiber of our being. Everything. In everything.
For me, the phenomena of religion are fundamentally human psychic phenomena, and as such, their seat is the human central nervous system, especially the brain.
So you, in short, the brain. You believe in the neshama, the soul. We look in the brain. Arnold, Catherine, anything you want to weigh in? The heart. You say in the heart.
The conscience, I mean.
Oh, the conscience. Okay. By the way, the conscience is not necessarily the heart.
Oh no, I mean the conscience,
the conscience or our consciousness.
No, conscience.
The conscience, right? The fact that we feel right or wrong.
Feel in the heart, right,
Okay.
Right, that's a sense.
By the way, that's a mixture of the heart and the brain. Where's the conscience located? I don't give classes on the conscience, but where would that be?
Yes.
Probably a mixture. Yeah, maybe even more the brain, right? Because it's like a psychological
Big
thing.
debate.
Is it? Okay, you'll give us an NLP class afterwards.
This has nothing
Arnold,
to do
what do you?
with-
No, not at all. Oh, I would have thought it's
All of the above.
all of the above. Okay.
There is no separation.
So there are certainly sources for different things that are being said here, right? But the Alter Rebbe chooses to analyze, right? And okay, so the Alter Rebbe right away brings one of the quotes that the neshama rests in the head, in the brain. But the Alter Rebbe starts to analyze based on, right? So obviously the Alter Rebbe is not taking face value here, and he says let's start to analyze it based on what we know the neshama does, right? So one of the most important things we say is that the neshama powers, not the body, right? That's the animal soul, but the neshama powers all of the powers of the body. The neshama energizes all of the powers and the abilities, the kochot. I don't know what the best word for kochot is, like the functions of the body, right? So our eyesight, we're told, not our eyes, but our eyesight is powered by the neshama. Our power of speech comes from the neshama. Our feelings come from the neshama. Right? We're told that all of these things come from the neshama. So now, wait a second.
So it's like the brain.
Certainly the neshama rests in the brain, and that's what he's going with here for now. But his question is, if you're telling me that there are lots of different things, to give a total, it's 248 locations that the neshama ends off, which starts to sound more like we're going where Pam was going, as in every fiber of our being. So now let me ask you a question. So if every one of them comes from, okay, certainly nobody in this room I don't think would suggest that the neshama is eyesight, right? Or that the neshama is hearing, or any one of these powers or functions that we have that infuse our bodies, right? Individually. They all come from the neshama, and yet the neshama is none of them. Anybody see where we're going with this? Now, even more than that, let me just finish this thought, Avram, and then I'll answer your question. Even more than that, let's even try to think, if we can, and just use your own intuition with this. Were you to be able to get a glimpse of the neshama, do you think that you would be able to pinpoint eyesight in the neshama? I posit you that not. The neshama only has one core identity of what it is, right? And that is the neshama. And that's way above eyesight or hearing or touch or smell or anything else. Any of the 248 energies that there are within the limbs of the body. And the neshama it produces them all, and yet when you look at the neshama isn't made up of 248 puzzle pieces. Pardon the extremely physical analogy. Yes?
When you say neshama, the first thing comes to your mind, is it godly soul or animal soul?
The godly soul. The godly soul we're talking about here.
So but neshama is included is being identified like animal soul or soul, no?
Right now, yeah, sure. The animal soul is also called the nefesh abahamit. It's also a soul, but for today, we're talking about the godly soul.
Can I amend my answer?
Sure. 1 second. I think Yosef wants to say something.
No.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
So I still say it's in every fiber of our being, but the mechanism that it gets in every fiber of our being is like a direct connection that is fed by God.
Okay. So the Alter Rebbe just ends off by giving us one more analogy. Okay, because all we did now is bring another analogy that we don't understand, right? So So Alter Rebbe says, let's try one that's physical and that we see all the time and yet still has the same characteristics. The Alter Rebbe says, what's about the sun? Right? So let's ask all the same questions about the sun. The sun shines simultaneously. Right now, it's shining simultaneously into this room. We had lights on, but if the lights were not on, the room would be full with light, right? One of the coolest things about light is that there's no such thing as, you can't bring a little bit of light into a room. Right? If you bring a little bit of light into the room, the whole room is full of light.
And you cannot stop the sun from coming.
Well, you could put something in between, but yes, correct. You cannot stop it. So what does that show us? That shows us that the light that we're getting in here is directly from the sun. Right? Meaning there's nothing we can do to stop it. We can filter it. We can put a tinted window, maybe in green, and then this room would be filled with a green light, right? But right? Now, at the same time that the light is filling this room right now, right? Unfortunately, it's also filling Menachem's bedroom. That's why we have dark blinds up, right? In order to make sure that it doesn't come in, because we try to stop it, right? But if we were to pick up those blinds, the light would go into that room as well as into somebody's room in Australia and somebody's room in France and the Ukraine. So now, I'm going to ask you a question. This whole room is full of light. The whole Ukraine is full of light. The whole world is full of light, right? Does that mean that all of that light was in the sun before it came out to us? It's produced from the sun, certainly. But if we were to go inside the sun, were we to see ray number 1, which is designed for Yaakov's Library at 1090 East Walnut Street, Pasadena, California, 91106, and then we have to put USA at the end, because this is an international operation, remember, right? Would we find that inside? We wouldn't. The sun is some sort of core and source of a light. By the way, one of the another amazing thing that Chassidus points out. I'm going way beyond this chapter of Tanya. I'm basing off a lot of Chassidus that I've learned on this same topic that I'm sort of giving you here. So another interesting phenomenon about sunlight, right, which is true also about godly light, of course, and also about the light of the soul. In other words, the energy of the soul as goes on. So you mentioned if it were to be stopped, right? Let me ask you a question. Does anybody here believe that it makes any difference to the sun? And we're not talking about the sun as a conscious being that has, let's not even go there, right? But does it diminish the sun's light in any way, whether the sun is going all the way into this room, or if I put a blockade over there and over there, like that, there's no windows, that it doesn't affect the sun in any way. Shouldn't that give us a clue to the fact that this ray of light, which is now in this room, wasn't inside the sun? Right? In other words, the ray of light is not, meaning the sun is shining everywhere and emanating. Shining is a very bad word. Even emanating is bad because they both make it sound like a conscious effort. The sun is being. Let's use that word. And as a result, we are just having light from the sun. Does that make sense? Now, even though the sun has an unlimited amount of rays coming out of it, those rays are not found in the sun. Even though the sun produces them, they don't exist inside the sun. And more importantly, they don't affect the sun in any way.
That's the illusion, because whatever, this room could be somewhere else. It could be knocked down tomorrow. It could be...
Yeah, exactly. And yet, when we talk about this room, okay, perfect. And here's where we get to the main point we're going to say. Because yet, when we, me, you, when we talk about this room, we use very concrete terms. This room is filled with light. Never mind the fact that we use concrete terms. Those are just words. Let's talk about reality. Right? If there is sunlight in this room, we can sit here and learn Tanya. I mean, okay, today we have electricity, right? If there was no sunlight in this room, we cannot. Our existence depends on this ray, which makes absolutely no difference to the sun. To us, is a tremendous difference. Right? Imagine if you were to tell somebody who's in a room with light, tell them, oh, you know this ray that you're talking about, the light which is filling this room, which you're so thankful for? Tell them, you know what? It doesn't really exist. Try to give him the same perspective as the sun. Oh, it doesn't really exist. The sun doesn't even really care whether it's there or not. He doesn't even really know whether it's there or not. He can't even wrap his brain around it. Right? He's like, I don't get it. It's so tangible. It's so concrete. It's so here. I'm so dependent on it. Right? Let's back up to the neshama. Yes?
Where is your soul located? If soul is spiritual, how can you define it in a matter of physicality?
Good question.
That's right.
We're not really going to answer the question where your soul is located.
God. It's like we're borrowing it. It stays in God, like the sun stays in the sun.
Listen, it certainly says that the soul is enclosed in the body, and that the soul is here inside the body, and it gives life to the body. So it's certainly here. But like you said, it's not a physical existence. Okay, but let's not get caught up in the analogy, right? The soul is just supposed to help us understand, like you mentioned at the beginning of the class, the Shechinah, right? So let's back up from the analogy of the sun, which we just analyzed. Let's go to the soul now, right? So the soul and all of these functions which come out of the soul, these 248 functions which we discussed, work in the same mechanism. The soul doesn't care. We're talking about it as a conscious being, right? The soul is not affected or diminished, and it doesn't even have, you cannot pinpoint the space in the soul where eyesight is. And yet eyesight comes directly from it. So where is the whole difference? Where is the whole effect? What is the whole effect based on? In other words,
What we think.
No, not just what we think. In this case, who's the recipient? The eye. The eye, to the eye, it says, what do you mean? This is eyesight. I have eyesight. If I didn't have eyesight, I wouldn't be able to see. I wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be functioning.
No, the eye doesn't say that.
Of course, the eye doesn't say that, right? But you understand my point. That there's a, it's from the eye's perspective that the eyesight is really only eyesight. From the neshama's perspective, it's really just being. The neshama is just being, and all of these things are happening as a result of the neshama. All these things are being
That's
produced
right. It's
by the
like
neshama.
The sun in the morning removes the mist, but it does nothing to the landscape. It's just being sun, and
And things are happening automatically. Yes, okay, so, I mean, you're right about that. Let's not confuse, meaning let's not add another layer though. We already have two analogies. The mist is another function of the sun, that it's also warm, and it also evaporates things. But for now we're talking about the light aspect. Okay, so let's stick to that like that, just like that we don't get confused or sidetracked.
No, I'm saying that the sun removes the mist and allows us to see the landscape.
By
It
mist,
was always there.
by mist you mean like fog, darkness?
Fog, yeah.
Okay,
So the light is just being light,
100%.
but in its presence,
right.
we
So let's use the
see-
term darkness. Just like, because I thought you were referring like to dew or to
No,
rain.
no.
Right, okay, you're basically darkness.
It hides
The
the
sun
true
removes,
reality.
right, it removes, right. So the soul works the same way, right? Okay, so it produces all these functions, it has all these lights that come out of it, and to the eye and to the eyesight itself, that's crucial. Not only is it crucial, it's its whole existence. And yet, the soul, this is nothing. The soul is just being. So now let's get all the way back up to where we were, right? And this is based on the verse in Job, in Eov, right? In which Eov says, this is famous, Chassidus quotes this, if there's a mimer that's talking about God, if there's a discourse that's talking about God, then this verse is quoted, Mi besari echse Eloka, which means from my flesh I see God. In other words, we can use our own bodies as a way of understanding, not just body, but our soul, our bodies, our own existence, as a way of understanding God's existence. This is because God created us, B'Tselem Elokim.
Yeah,
Right? So we use it as a backwards mechanism. We look at our bodies, we examine how our existence works, and then we go back to Hashem to understand how that works. So now we're going to take these two analogies and back up. Yes?
When you say, when the Rebbe said that
The Alter Rebbe.
No, the
Oh, yeah.
Lubavitch Rebbe says that he says that the brain has the effect from the, like for example, you can say like the song, lyrics come from the brain, and the music come from the soul. We cannot say where the soul is located. It's only feelings.
We cannot, and yet, and I think you're struggling with this point. So let me show it to you inside, because I think you'll appreciate it.
That's what
Right. 1 second. Let me show you something inside. Here, on page 649, the Alter Rebbe says, "V'afal pikein." 649. The Alter Rebbe says, "V'afal pikein iker mishkana v'ashra'ata hi b'mocho."
There is a rabbi.
The paragraph that starts Shekimo. The 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth paragraph. Yeah. Shekimo shelishmat ha'adam hi mimal'a kol ramachi v'arei haguf b'rosh v'adaglo. It's similar to the notion that a person's soul fills all the 248 parts of his body, from head to toe. The afal pikein, and nevertheless, ikir mishkana v'ashra'ata hi b'mocho. While the soul is found throughout the body, the main location and resting place of the soul is in the brain. So says the Alter Rebbe, and he's basing this on certain verses, by the way. So there is somewhere, we do say that the soul, even though it fills the entire body, and even though it's spiritual, and even though it's a piece of God, etc., right? Chelek Elokam Ma'al Mamash, as we introduced in chapter 2 of Tanya, simultaneously we say that it fills the entire body. Anyways, So now let's back up. Right? So now we understand a little bit more about how the soul works, even though we don't fully understand it. And we have a physical analogy from the sun, which we've all agreed upon seems to make some sort of physical sense to us, right? So says the Alter Rebbe, so too it works with God. Hashem, godliness, or what we're going to call for the purposes of this conversation, or Ein Saf, which means unlimited light, right? Or Ein Sof, without any end, right? The light of Hashem, without the unlimited godly energy that there is in this world, powers the entire world. So yes, Hashem is everywhere. At the same time, Hashem's presence is found everywhere equally. There is nowhere that Hashem's presence is found more than the other. Not in you, not in me, not in a beautiful miracle or in something else, right? And by the way, let me clarify. When we say this, we mean the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, and right now there's the same exact amount of godliness in this world. That's in time, in space. In the Beit HaMikdash, and right here there is exactly the same amount of godliness. Just as the sun. Because Hashem is just being. Hashem is just being Hashem. He's unlimited, He's Orah Ein Sof. How much light is there here right now from Hashem? Ein Sof. No limit. Right? How much light is there in the Beit HaMikdash of Hashem? Ein Sof. No limit. So let's go back to the questions we had at the beginning of the chapter. So why do we say that there are, first of all, so what is a miracle? I thought a miracle is more godliness, right? What is the Beit HaMikdash? I thought there's more godliness there, right? When the famous Talmud, the famous Talmudic saying, the Gemara, which says that Mishachara Beit HaMikdash, once the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Ein lo lakadosh baruch hu ba'olamo ela daled amot shel halacha. That God doesn't have any space in this world besides for the 4 cubits of halacha, which refers to the fact that when a Jew studies Torah, that's where there's more godliness. What is this? What is this talking about?
Like the Reed said, we're connected more, and it's...
Okay. So this is where all these analogies are going to help us. The key word, says the Alter Rebbe, is revelation. Now, revelation, let's discuss that word revelation, right? I don't know, what's something that's not revealed and then is revealed, right? When somebody, that's what?
Hidden.
No, I understand. That's the word. But I'm saying, like, let's take an example, right? If somebody tells you a riddle, and right now the answer is not revealed to you, it's hidden from you, right? So you have no access to it. And then he reveals the answer to you. Or even you reveal the answer on your own, because you're smart and you come up with it and you figure it out.
You can't see it anymore.
Right. And now, no, of course, you can't not see it anymore, right? And now it's there, right? Let me ask you a question. The answer to the riddle didn't exist before you revealed it? Of course it did.
Yes.
Of course it did. So the difference between hidden and revealed is, and let's agree on this because this is a key important point, and let's make sure everybody understands this. The difference between something that is revealed and is not revealed is in the revelee, is in the person to whom it is revealed. I make up words with E at the end all the time. The revelee, the mitzvah-e, whatever you want, you put E at the end and it's the person who's getting it. Right? So it's all about the recipient. Are we on the same page here? Is everybody with me? So, and this is crucial to understand why, because that is the difference between godliness in the Holy Temple, godliness when we do a mitzvah, godliness by a miracle. It's the revelation of godliness here in this world. How much revelation there is. In other words, how much the recipient is understanding it. So, 1 second, you look like you want to share something, but 1 second. So when we talk about the light in this room, right, from the sun, and how there's more, there's less, it's all about us receiving it. The sun is not making any difference. Similarly with godliness, right, in the world, so it's just about how revealed godliness is. Hashem gave us a beautiful blessing there. When we came to the Beit HaMikdash, we were more in tune with godliness. Not that there was more or less godliness in the world. And that's because when Hashem created the world, He put in place all these filters. Where does the revelation come from? It comes from, like Arnold so beautifully pointed out, because there was a hiddenness. There is something hiding Hashem from us. That's the filters. The tzimtzumim, the parsais, the all the different things that, right, all the different screens and filters and transformations and evolutions that there are of godliness before it comes to us. As a matter of fact, that's what allowed us to exist. Because to Hashem, this world now and this world before we were created is exactly the same. The difference is that Hashem implemented these filters for us, and from our perspective, that allow us to believe that our existence is real, and that allow us to feel as if we're more or less in tune with God. We're getting more or less godliness from Hashem. So So just to summarize and answer those questions. The Beis HaMikdash. Yes, the Beis HaMikdash was a place where a person could touch godliness on a much higher level. Why? Because Hashem gave us a blessing that the Beis HaMikdash was a place where these filters didn't affect as much. A miracle. The giving of the Torah. Right? But the giving of the Torah is the ultimate one, right? God chose to remove all filters and allow us. I mean, I guess He didn't remove all filters because our souls did expire when we had that revelation from God, right? But He removed most of the filters like that we were able to experience actual godliness. Right? And that's the difference in all of these different levels of godliness that we talk about. It doesn't really change what there is in this world. It doesn't change the reality. If you want to talk about a godly reality, Hashem is everywhere, or in self exactly the same. And that's what we say. I'm going to finish the point. I'm going to end the recording, and then we'll talk in just a moment. And that's what we say when we say the word Shechinah, presence. What is this presence of Hashem? The presence of Hashem is on your head. The presence of Hashem is in my toes. The presence of Hashem is in the Beis HaMikdash. It's by Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah. The presence of Hashem is the revelation of Hashem that we have. The resting of Hashem in this world that doesn't change from God's perspective, just like the sun's light doesn't change in this room, based on this. And that is the first point that we will understand. So buried deep within this revelation that we're having, sometimes it's very little revelation, right? Buried deep within that there's Or Ein Sof. If you follow that back, you're going to find the unlimited light of godliness, because it is. God is everywhere. This is the first point that the author introduces to us when we want to understand what is Shechinah, what is the presence of Hashem in this world. This is point number 1. And with this we conclude Jewish Mysticism Lessons in Tanya, chapter 51, what is the Shechinah?